All right, we're ready now for the next 15 minutes. We will take questions from the audience, and if your question was not asked, you are free to ask it. Hopefully it's something different, or maybe something was prompted by some of the comments made this evening already. What we need is a microphone brought up front. There's one right there. If you'll go to this microphone. Now, since this is an interesting subject and near and dear to a lot of people, you are given 15 seconds to ask your question. And that's just so we don't get some speechifying. All right, so please stay 15 seconds to ask your question, and we will start with, did you go first last time? Were you first? All right, so candidate Hoffmeister will answer first.
I got one question, and this question is that why can I put my two grandchildren in a private school, and this isn't the first private school because they were also in Illinois in a private school, why can I put them in, in a private school and for $5,000 to $7,000, and that variance is because there is some variances in there, I could give them a superb education, but for $10,000 to $12,000, I can put them in public school and they fail. They don't get the education that they need. Something's wrong with that. And one of the things is the public education doesn't teach the children why they're going to school.
That's longer than 15 seconds, so we'll let the candidates answer.
All right. Well, in a private school, private schools don't have the same restrictions and requirements, and so they're able, and I grew up in private Christian school, they're able to teach and have rich instruction without seeing that those important, well-rounded, subjects that all go with a well-rounded education recede into the background, while a focus ends up being on the two subjects that are going to be tested. Or if you're in high school, there's 7 tests that have to be taken in order to graduate. So there is regulation that needs to be deregulated so we can get back to what's important, and that should be about children and about learning. But great point.
Well, I think there should be no prohibition on anyone taking their child to a private school, and they should be able to do it with public money. The important part is that parent choice creates constant improvement of our schools and is the ultimate accountability, because the parent makes the choice with their feet. If they're not happy with their school, they can go to another school. I think that's very important. Then the school changes the way they do things to make sure they're meeting the needs of each individual child. Unfortunately, in public school, we are hit with a lot of federal regulations and things that I've fought against all the time that I've been in office. It's really funny, they have some reporting requirements on them, and I told them no, we weren't going to do it that way, and they really didn't know how to react to that. And so I think it's important that parents be a part of it, and they have the opportunity to decide. We have seen improvement with charter schools. We're seeing improvement with Lindsay Nicole Henry and the way that special services are being delivered to our children. We have opportunity scholarships for parents in poverty that are in poor performing schools that have an opportunity to go. And I look forward to an opportunity in my second term in office to work with Governor Fella and the legislature to see if it's possible to bring vouchers to Oklahoma parents. You have the right to decide.
Okay, next question, and 15 seconds. Our timekeeper will be watching. And the candidates have 2 answers to respond as well. And
you ready?
Superintendent, you'll go first.
Now that Common Core is finished, hopefully, will you immediately stop the proliferation and use of the P20 longitudinal study?
There really is probably, I can tell you that I'm not really involved with the P20 study that is going on. And so it is related to only the ability of us to be able to produce kids that are ready for college and career. And so it's the work of career tech and higher ed primarily through that. And we're doing a little bit to inform that. Quite frankly, my folks have not been meeting on that in over a year. The head of the council is gravely ill. As a matter of fact, he's terminally ill, and there has not been very much work in that lately. And so I'm telling you that I doubt if it will continue to move forward. It doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in it. There hasn't been a lot of energy that has gone into it as of late. And so I think that is something that will probably die away. But thank you for your question.
No matter what we call any kind of data collection or federal overreach, whatever label is attached to that, we have to stand against inappropriate collection of data. We're talking about minors who have no ability to give up their right, and we're talking about parents who may not realize that their children's information is being gathered and how it's being stored. We live in a digital age that we can't even anticipate how information will be easily accessible in the future, and we've got to have an advocate at the State Department of Education who takes seriously the privacy issues. And I'm going right back to what I had said a minute ago. While I was a State Board of Education member, students applied for a waiver for a diploma. And they were exercising their legislative right to do an appeal to the state board. And I was shocked when I learned that those 20-some students who went through that process had to surrender, first of all, to us all their academic scores, transcripts. They included portfolios from their IEP and personal private letters about family history in their own handwriting. It had their address and their name and all sorts of information for their entire history. And it was uploaded onto the State Department of Education's website. And I was shocked. I thought maybe it was an error. And when I sent an email to the state superintendent and said, why did this happen? Parents never expected for this to occur. It remained for at least a week because I had people in New York contacting me, dealing with privacy issues, that they had heard about this already all the way there. We've got to have an advocate for privacy.
Did you already answer that one? Did you already answer that one?
Thank you. I do regret that happened. It was the first time we had the appeals. After that, we took it down. The person that was responsible for it no longer works for me. I made sure that it never happened again. We have a student privacy law. It was something I was proud to work with legislators on, and we have a wonderful student data privacy system. Thank you.
All right, we're going to, 2 seconds. Well, maybe 5.
Check that email. Go to Tulsa World, and you will see they did an opens records request, and my email was there. And see how long it was before that information came off. Did not come down. It did come down eventually, I do want to say that. But it did not come down when she was told about it.
All right. Well, that's obviously an issue. Okay. It's 15 seconds on the questions, and we're going to limit the answers to 1 minute, Ms. Timekeeper, so that we can get more questions in.
Oh. I haven't heard anything on teacher merit pay, so what are you going to do about teacher merit pay?
And you're first.
Well, I do think that we need to have a way to pay teachers what they deserve. And we have teachers who are vibrant professionals, who are in subject matters. They have expertise where we need those teachers in our schools. And I'm not opposed to a way of providing that kind of funding. But here's the deal. We have to find a way to be able to evaluate our teachers, to know that they are all part of a puzzle, and part of a piece of getting there. So do we devalue a first grade teacher who's teaching the reading, in that process? Those are questions that have to be answered and worked through to make sure that we have a way to attract and retain top talent in Oklahoma at all grade levels and subject matters. But let's find a way to do that.
Yes, I do support performance pay for teachers. First of all, though, we need to raise the base for teachers. I've been advocating for a $2,000 pay raise for teachers since I came into office. I think it's critical, but Governor Fallin and I do want to work on instituting performance pay for teachers. As a matter of fact, I was on a task force before I even ran for office that I was asked to serve on that focused on developing a merit pay system for teachers. It's important. It's important for a teacher to be awarded for the work that they do. I also think that teachers should be able to have ways to climb within their profession and to experience additional professional opportunities, but still stay into the classroom. So those types of things, helping a teacher grow professionally and then rewarding them, for the great work that they do. So we'll continue to work on that in the second administration.
First of all, I'd like to thank both of you for being here this evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with our citizens. I deal with business owners every single day, and the number one issue that I hear about is a lack of qualified individuals, highly skilled individuals, a pool to choose from in our workforce, and that's why we lose businesses every single day to Kansas and Texas. I also have several friends who've graduated on average with $50,000 to $100,000 in debt.
Question.
Going from schools. My question is, what are you going to do to encourage our students and schools to do co-op programs with TCC, community colleges, and tech programs so that they realize they can be contributing members of society without having to pay and have $100,000 in debt before your degree?
Is your question, will you support TCC?
What are you going to do to get rid of the stigma that you have to go to a four-year degree and have to pass the SAT, get these scores on SAT and ACT? What can we do to get them to getting into tech programs and community colleges?
Okay. Thank you. That has to do with being college and career ready. I think that's absolutely critical, and that's something we've been working on. I've been working with Governor Fallin on, and actually it was a big part of her National Governors Association initiative this year. First of all, I work very closely with Bob Summers. He's the director of Career Tech. There's a lot of intertwining between their department and ours. We have about 110 industry certified certifications that an individual can achieve out of our Career Tech system. Many of them, the kids come out with college hours, but they also come out with some very good pay, many times being paid more than a person with a bachelor's degree. You're right. It is a matter of getting these kids aware of the possibilities. That's the counselors. They're overworked. And so we're looking at ways that we can reach these kids. Dr. Summers and I were talking about this down in the 6th grade to let them have an awareness of careers and opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities out there for them, and we're dedicated to making sure they have those opportunities.
Well, as I have been traveling also around the state, and actually, I'll tell you what, we've put about 57,000 miles on my car in Oklahoma during this, on the campaign trail now, and I've been visiting with people about this very issue and hearing from them. And some of the comments have to do with that a student in high school often has to make a decision or a choice between being involved in student government or being a part of career technology or being a part of sports or career technology. And it is fascinating to hear that there are some things like that that really we would not know until we go and listen and understand some of those very personal reasons that people make choices that they do. And as we find those opportunities, we should find a way to bring that kind of, smooth down those hurdles so that kids don't have to make a choice between being involved in their class or being involved in career tech. And we can do that.
With all the testing debacles we've had over the last couple of years, the crashing systems and kids getting sick and upset and not being able to log on, and then we had problems with other testing vendors even before that testing vendor. Why don't we go use paper and pencil? And I've researched this, it's much less expensive as well. So,
okay. Paper and pencil versus electronic testing. And you're first.
Well, it makes sense. That is a question that I've not been asked, so I haven't actually explored what the ramifications would be of trying to do that statewide. I do know we do that with our ACT, and that is applied to hundreds of thousands of students, and we get results back very quickly. So there's got to be a way that we can apply some of this to the kinds of tests that we are mandated to give. But I certainly think that sounds like a good idea. I'm interested to hear what Janet Barisi has to say. It sure would help the issues where we don't have bandwidth and have some problems with technology. And districts are having to really incur great costs to be able to do it. But I would be willing to look at that.
Part of the problems that we've had with technology has to do with infrastructure within the state. It has to do with connectivity, to being able to connect to microfibers. It has to do with bandwidth. Our districts are struggling for more bandwidth. And it has to do with the number of devices. And we're making an effort within the state to resolve all of those issues. But actually, that is a question that I asked as we were developing our contracts and our additional contracts in this last year because of the problems we had with technology. We looked into the price of doing paper and pencil for every single grade and found out it was a prohibitive cost. It was actually more expensive than testing online. And remember, we only test from 6th grade to 12th grade online. It also would be exponentially longer to be able to get test results back. We would not be getting test results back till mid or at the end of summer to where we could even begin to look at that. So, good idea. ACT is aligned to the Common Core.
I guess we just can't have the teachers grade the tests at home. 15 seconds.
OCPA has praised the Lindsay Nicole Henry Scholarship as a free market approach to parent choice in education. Where do you guys specifically stand on the scholarship? Do you support it, yes or no? And could you give us a little insight as to why local school board members would be suing parents in regards to the scholarship?
The superintendent that initiated this, there were two superintendents that initiated this, and they called this the last civil rights issue in our country, which is the right of public schools to be able to maintain a public school system. I think that's unconscionable. I think it's cruel. Obviously, I'm a huge supporter of Lindsay Nicole Henry. I was a supporter of the bill at the time it began to go through the legislature. I saw the fight all along the way, the continued fight. As you know, those individuals sued the State Board of Education and me in my position as state superintendent because they're not happy with the first answer they got, and that's before our state Supreme Court. There's a lot of great prayer intercessors out there that are praying for the success and for the correct answer by our state Supreme Court. We think it'll be an important answer, and we look forward to a successful completion of that lawsuit. It's just wrong for children. It is wrong for those parents to be put under that much duress.
And I've stated also to the media, we sent out a press release as well, that I do support Lindsay Nicole Henry Scholarship. The reason is it's about students that have special education needs that need to be filled, and many of them are not able to have those filled in the schools they attend. As I mentioned before, I have spent just right around, it's almost 15 years as an advocate in those meetings with the parents. And I do see that we don't always have a school district that is able to provide the kinds of supports that are needed. And it's got to be about standing with parents so that they can address in the right learning environment for their children needs that must be met. And so that is something that I will always stand with parents on that particular piece of legislation. I had nothing to do with any of the decisions that were made when it came to, in fact, I didn't even know about that law, or about that lawsuit.
All right, thank you. We're going to have those 3 more questions, and then we're just about done. And again, I want to thank both candidates for being here and answering these questions. You'll have 5 minutes to wrap up. You can tilt that microphone down towards you if you would like.
I'm a 5th grader and I tested for 2 weeks. I was also tested with a computer. I didn't hear how you will decrease testing in the future.
If you're a 5th grader, I really don't know why you were tested for 2 weeks, because as a 5th grader, the mandated tests that you took were only 2, and they should have been approximately about an hour apiece in the length of time that you took them. And you should have taken them through paper and pencil, because as a 5th grader, you would not have taken those tests online. So perhaps those were tests given by your school district and decided on by your school district locally. And so good luck to you. You're an intelligent young man, and I think you're going to do very, very well.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to spend so much time not learning. If you're testing, you're not learning. So this is what I'm talking about. We have to get to the root of the problem, and that is the high-stakes nature of the tests that are required. I don't know the details of your particular situation at your school, but I do know that everywhere I go, I hear over and over, it's not one school, it's not one district that's chosen to burden their teachers and their students with decreased testing, decreased instruction and increased testing. They are responding to mandates, and we need to have a leader who will listen and not just ignore that there's a difference between, well, there's a practicality to it that you only understand when you're a part of it and you're there and you can see and feel the stress and the climate. It is toxic and it needs to change.
HB 3399 mandates a rollback to the 2010 educational standards, and then between now and then we'll be developing new standards for 2016. What is the best way that we as citizens can monitor that process to ensure that Common Core is not reinserted back in under another name, as has happened in lots of other states?
Well, it needs to be an open and transparent process, and it can't just be something we say. And if we do gather information from people regionally, we have to do something with it other than just hear. And so it's about applying what we're hearing. Now, it's also about communicating, because we have to have two-way conversation so that there is an understanding. And this means getting in with people and listening. Not having something to say, but just listening, so that we can understand what it is that's important to our communities. So the way we would structure that is with very specific schedule. I think you've heard this described. I don't have a problem with how that sounds. I just have lived it, and I have seen that we go through motions, but we don't have an outcome that ends up. Okay?
Precisely.
You're asking the question, how can we monitor? Please don't monitor.
As citizens.
Participate. Very quickly.
That's included in that.
Participate in that. Terry Burkeen is going to be over all of this, and this is about English and math. And Terry and I have decided to divide the state up into 12 regions. Now, the way that the participation is going to occur, certainly if you want to, we have information for you to sign up to where you can actually be part of the writing and the review yourself. And I'm asking you to do that. Please, everybody sign up. The calls are coming in. But if you can't quite do that and get into the department all of the time or be a part of that, we're asking then for advisory councils on each of those 12 regions. Those that are involved in the writing, and that's higher ed, career tech, it is the Department of Commerce, and of course it's teachers and administrators are going to be part of that writing as well. They will go back to their individual regions and go to their advisory boards, and for that matter, any other citizen that wants to be a part of it and say, well, okay, this is how far we're gone. How's that sound to you? And you'll have a chance to give.
Oh, I'll be happy to do so. Thank you.
Young lady back there, will take your name.
Last question.
Yeah. Hi, I teach second and third grade at one of the best schools in the state. It's high poverty, high English language learners. And we received a F this year with the current grading system. And so I was wondering if you think the school report card A through F grading system is appropriate and if it's accurate.
You know, actually, I do think it is an accurate system. It's not a reflection on the individuals in the building. It is a chance for them to be able to see how kids are performing within their schools so they can get together with parents and those in the community to continually improve that school. It really is unfortunate that individuals in education thinks it's a form of punishment. This is about children. This is not about making adults look good or bad. I understand your effort is very, very strong, and I admire you for that, and thank you for your service and for the work you do. In high poverty areas, it's very difficult. But we also have other high poverty schools that have done very, very well. We're through a special granting process or looking at pairing those together so they can share best practices and continue to improve. That's something I've initiated, and I'll continue on in my second term in office. Governor Fallon is very excited about it. We're calling it the Bright Spot Survey and Grant.
Well, this is a very important issue. We had an opportunity to get it right, but our state superintendent did not want help. And so we ended up with a system that was not accurate, valid, or useful. It should work, and I want you to hear, I'm very committed to having accountability system, okay? We must. But what should have worked out was that we would have a system that was like a mirror that reflected back accurate information so that a school could do all these things that we're hearing about, that it would motivate, that it would be accurate. But instead, because the work of our two premier research universities was ignored, and their invitation by OU and OSU research scientists who said, hey, we'd like to share something with you and we can help, that was ignored. And so instead now we have like a carnival funhouse mirror that's wavy, where you can look in it and you recognize yourself as a school, but it's not valid, accurate, or reliable.
You can come on up. All right, we're ready for the 5-minute candidate summary, and we will start with candidate Hoffmeister.
All right. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. We need new leadership because of failed leadership. We have to have a leader who will listen, who will build relationships, who will build trust. Because if we don't have confidence in the information coming out of the State Department of Education, it all crumbles, and we aren't going to be able to best serve our students. We have to also have a leader who isn't going to just throw mud and hope that something sticks. We have to not disparage those who have said, we need change, and so they've gotten behind me and want to help. I can't decide who's going to contribute to our campaign, and I tell you what, I've never given to a campaign before, but Janet Barisi has. And if we look at what Janet Barisi has given, we do see thousands of dollars to Sandy Garrett. I don't stand with the policies of Sandy Garrett. She was the last state superintendent for 20 years. This is a problem, but that is true. Janet Barisi also contributed to the individual that was running against Gary Jones when he was the state Republican chair running for state auditor. And she chose the opponent, who was a Democrat, who later, after he won, was indicted for criminal activity. This is the record. We have to look at what is the record of Janet Barisi. Janet Barisi says she's against bureaucrats, education bureaucrats, but it was Janet Barisi who hired the top lobbyist for the teacher unions in Oklahoma to be her chief of staff. And he's still there today. Actions speak louder than words. We have seen 3.5 years of, I think, good intentions, but you've got to be able to deliver. You can't lead if no one is following. I'm asking for your help, your support, your vote on June 24th. We have an opportunity I don't want to miss, and that opportunity is to lead, and let's begin and lead in our state, but then let's continue to build a program in our state of education that is strong, vibrant, attracts businesses to our communities, our children back after they graduate here. And we can do this together, but it's not going to be one person doing it. It's going to be all of us together. And there will be differences of opinions on things, but that's our American way. We work together and we listen and we make decisions that are informed because we're engaged. So I thank all of you who are engaged in this process, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
I'm going to tell you a little story. During my first campaign, I went down to southern Oklahoma and was doing some campaigning and some fundraising. And the man owned a lumber mill, and he had employees out there cutting posts for a fence. And he said, you know what? I want my employees to hear you. Because I talked about opportunities for children, I talked about reading, I talked about strong accountability, all of those things that weren't evident in our education system at that time, and my hopes for the students of the state. He said, come talk to my employees, gathered them around. I gave them a little bit of a speech and then asked for questions. And from the back of the group came a hand. And I looked into the eyes of a man that was covered with soot and dirt, and he had the most beautiful steely blue eyes, but he looked at me intently and he said, ma'am, let me tell you something. He said, I've made some bad choices in my life. He said, I haven't finished school. And he said, I've got a little girl that just finished 3rd grade, and she came to me one day and asked me to help her with her math questions. And he said, I couldn't do it. And he said, I asked her to go back to school the next day and tell her dad couldn't help her and ask for a teacher for help. And she came home the next day crying, and she said her teacher told her to figure it out for herself. He said, ma'am, I'm asking you something. If I vote for you, will you help my little girl? I have never, ever forgotten her. Every single night I go to bed. I pray for every teacher in the state. I pray for that little girl and every other child in this state. Because that little girl has the right to a future. She has a right to a future that this state promises in the incredible abundance to each child. We will write strong standards. We're going to write standards that are better than the Common Core. We will be that light piercing the darkness of education throughout this country. I pledge that to you. The process has begun. I'm asking you to be a part of it and join us in that. Oklahoma will teach Oklahoma values and Oklahoma knowledge and skill to every child in this state, and we'll be better for it, and we will be that light on the hill. I absolutely know that. My prayer intercessors talk to me about it all the time. We are David. We're going to put on that armor. I want to pledge to you, I have worked 24/7 for the last 4 years. Maybe I've done some things that have rubbed you the wrong way, but there has never, ever been a time when I haven't thought about the children of this state, more for what's for the children than making adults look good. And I pledge to you, I will continue to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot lose another generation of children. I am the only candidate in this race, Republican or Democrat, that is focused on making sure this generation now has the opportunities they need. Because if not now, when? And if not you, who? And if not these children, then which children? I'm asking for your vote June 24th. I'm respectfully asking for your vote, not for me, but for the children of this state. I pledge I will remain accountable to you. I will be focused on the children and doing everything I can to make Oklahoma the fantastic state, and that these children can share in the incredible bounties and have the incredible opportunities to succeed in this state. This is Oklahoma. We've shown we can do it every time under a crisis because we apply Oklahoma values. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I ask for your vote June 24th.